Genothi Seuton, love, peace, blessing, all manner of health, healing, wellness, abundance, goodness, happiness, joy, love, even more love, some love on top of that. Everything that makes your life healthy, abundant, wealthy, happy, loving, and joyful. Genothi Seuton, know yourself, and the truth shall make you free. Something good is going to happen to you today. And in creating your sacred space, as we're coming up on Christmas, it's so powerful, again, as being an energetic being and being aware of your energy, to recognize that there's an influence that wants to pull us towards negativity, negative vibration, low vibration, living and existing in survival mode, living and existing only in the lower chakras, where we are constantly leaking energy and creating an opening where energy is easily harvested out of us. The opposite is living in balance, because some energy does need to go out from us, but certainly not to feed parasites, but to go out and to make a connection to the healthy, positive things that we need and draw them back to us in the form of nutrition, in the form of healthy fellowship, relationships, everything that is needed for all of us to exist together in harmony. That's the attraction that comes back to us. But when we're in a situation where it's constantly leaking out, constantly draining, it's draining life force, and it is actually making your lifespan shorter, and it's simply toxic and not healthy. And when we're exposed to this type of negativity, it can be a downward spiral. And it's how a lot of the ancient teaching taught, there's an upward spiral, there's a downward spiral. And, the object is to be constantly moving upward and to just have the right amount of downward spiral to draw into us that which we need, not being in a constant downward spiral. And when we're in a constant downward spiral, what we focus on expands. And so we can tend to interpret everything around us in that type of vibration, because that's where we live, that's where we're existing. That's why some people, don't experience miracles and, supernatural results in life, because they're not living in that level of vibration. It's just as simple as that. And it's not judgmental, it's not a curse or anything like that. It's just simply your vibration. It's just simply where you are existing at that moment vibrationally. And then when you're in a certain vibrational existence, that's the reality, that's the kingdom, as opposed to the kingdom that you would prefer to live in. And so a way to do this and to retrieve and to fix this type of negative spin on things is during the holidays. For a lot of people, the holidays has turned into a time of resentment, unforgiveness, a time of remembering what someone did to you, a time of blaming our parents for not being perfect, even though that's the imperfect world that we were born into. Nobody can be perfect, and we can't expect anybody to be perfect unto us. And so therefore it's no one's fault. It's all a learning experience. And of course we have to balance that with the fact that, true abuse is never justified, it's never right, it's never okay, and it's never to be excused. But if you experienced it, it's something that you want to free yourself from, and that's what forgiveness is. It's for freeing you from it. Not saying that someone else is, that it's okay that what they did, and it's okay that that happened, It's releasing yourself from it. It's detaching yourself energetically from it so that it's not a toxin in your life that is constantly poisoning you in that memory. And when we enter, the Christmas season, I'm pretty sure everyone has some happy Christmas memories that they can attach to. Happy Christmas memories before there was any disappointment, before maybe you didn't get what you want, or you didn't get what the neighbors got, or you didn't get what everybody else in your class got, and you started to feel separate. You started to feel less. You started to feel divided from everyone. The opposite is when we can remember early moments of our youth when everything was perfect. It was a happy time, and we can remember that vibration. And one of the coolest things as a parent or a grandparent is when your children, when toddlers come up to you and they want to hug you. Of course, when you're a parent, you're a grandparent, you always want to hug your children and your toddlers because it's such a wonderful feeling. But when they come up to you and hug you, it's a little bit more. There's something a little bit more powerful there. And if you've ever noticed, usually a toddler, their hugs are kind of quick because they live in that moment. They live in that moment. That's where they stay. And so it's like a nice quick, it's like a connection is quick. For us, it's incredible because that's not where we were probably living. And so what we're doing is we're remembering that feeling, and that's why we need to hold on a little longer, squeeze a little tighter, and we don't want to let go because we're remembering that level of unconditional love. Toddlers, they live there. They haven't had, things happen that have, taken them out of that existence yet. And so that's where they stay. And so that's why they, for them, it's a bit quicker. They usually come and hug and, feel the warmth and the unconditional love and the forgiveness, or the unconditional love and the warmth and the kindness. And then they're on the way because they got stuff to do. They want to enjoy life. They want to play. But for us, we don't feel those feelings as often as they do. So we want to hold on longer. It's the same way with your pets. If you hug your pets, you always want to hug longer. But for them, it's usually, after a little while, they're a little bit antsy. It's like, okay, all right, big fella, you're okay. It's gonna be okay, And the same thing, they're busy being in the moment and recognizing what's on, as opposed to, having a healing moment. But a lot of our pets, they will come to you more often because they recognize our need. They sense it. They're more aware of our aura, and they're certainly a lot more sensitive to come in and fix it as often as possible. And so it's a beautiful world that we live in, beloved. It's fantastic. And so this Christmas season, instead of getting drugged back into a spiral mentality of, this person did that wrong, and, instead of, following all of these, baloney psychologies that, say, well, you got to go and you got to confront this and you got to tell them what happened, which usually just keeps the offense going longer. Like, you feel good for a moment because you feel more powerful, and when you hurt someone, you feel like, oh, there we go, now you're the ego. It's not really you, it's the ego side. It's the conditioned side of our being. Our toddler, infant, child self never does that. Our child, and that's the cool thing again, our childlike self again, was able to absorb the fullness of the moment to move on, because our childlike self is never stuck in unforgiveness. It's never stuck in resentment. It's never stuck in, all of the negative memories, because their childlike self stays in a higher existence where, all of the hormones, all of this melatonin and serotonin, all of the body chemistry is right. The oxytocin that is being released, from the brain, keeping us in just a constant state of what someone calls samadhi, the delta. It's being in delta, in our mind, as opposed to alpha and high alpha, or beta and high beta. But anyway, to make it a real easy to identify scenario for all of us, just like Yeshua said in Constantine's Bible, unless you become like a little child, like this little child, you shall never enter the kingdom of heaven. And that's not about judgment. That's not saying that you're not good enough and you can't enter. It's not about guards putting their spears in the way and say you shall not pass. It's none of that. It's that our mentality and our vibration is in a downward spiral, because we're stuck in remembering all of the offenses, all of the hurts, all of the pains, which no one truly intended. And so this Christmas season, if you can connect to those happy moments, and once you start connecting to them, you'll find out that there's a lot more of them than you were probably remembering right now. Because when you start to be aware of them, you start to remember them, they start to connect you to other memories, and with a little bit of maturity, I'm sure you start to understand your parents, and things that we may have translated or perceived as negative were actually probably our parents looking out for us. Or we can perceive as, well, they were hurt in that area, they struggled in that area, their inner child was wounded in that area. So of course, wounded people wound people, hurt people. It's what happens, but they didn't intend it, they didn't mean it. And when you recognize, I think it's very powerful the way Eckhart Tolle looks at it. When we are constantly living in this condition of mind being the conditioned person that life has turned us into. Again, it's not our childlike self, it's a conditioned self that is usually filled with hurts and pains and bad memories. That that type of mindset is actually insane. It's a sickness. And so you don't judge somebody who's sick. You don't judge somebody who's insane. They're a victim, and you have compassion for them. And for anybody who, was just only, who only had exposure to the world system, who only had a being that was the mainstream species that the powers that be conditioned everybody into, that's a sickness. It's an insanity. And so, of course, we don't judge somebody, for being sick. We don't judge somebody for, being insane. They're not themselves. They're not doing what they would naturally do or normally do, or being who they would normally be. Therefore, we don't judge them. So when you look at family members, when you look at your parents, look back, they had a mind sickness. They weren't able to give energy because of their own hurts and pains. Remember all of those happy moments. Remember all of those deep, loving hugs, and connect to that feeling and keep it inside of yourself, and come out of this holiday season with that type of feeling, with those types of emotions. Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Love, peace, blessing, something good is going to happen to you today. Gnothi Seyutan. Namaste.